This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
COVID-19 cases rise in Africa as more nations announce lockdowns. Italy death toll soars as Prime Minister calls COVID-19 the worst crisis since the Second World War. And Chinese billionaire Jack Ma's donation of medical supplies to Africa arrives in Ethiopia. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program, we take you to Zimbabwe's capital where water is so scarce that some people look for it at night. And Nigeria's jollof rice becoming a common feature on dinner tables around the world. We begin with the latest COVID-19 figures on the continent. Over 1,000 COVID-19 cases have been reported in 43 African countries so far. That's according to the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Let's now take a look at the numbers by region. Northern Africa has the highest number of confirmed cases. Cases in Egypt have jumped to 294 from 285. Algeria now has 139 cases of the coronavirus. Tunisia registered 15 new cases, raising the total to 75. In Western Africa, Senegal has the highest number of infections. Togo's cases, on the other hand, have risen to 16. Nigeria has 26 confirmed cases, up from 22. In Eastern Africa, Kenya has confirmed 8 new cases. This brings the total number of coronavirus cases to 15. In Central Africa, Cameroon has the highest number in the Great Lakes region, with 40 people infected. The Democratic Republic of Congo also saw a rise in cases, with 30 now confirmed. In Southern Africa, Mauritius has just announced 6 new cases about 30 minutes ago. South Africa remains the worst affected in that region, with 240 cases. Mozambique has just announced its first case. The global death toll and cases continue to surge. Data from Johns Hopkins University show more than 311,000 people have been infected. Italy has the largest outbreak outside China. It saw records in new daily infections and deaths on Saturday. Spain is the second hardest hit country in Europe with more than 28,000 infections. The United States reported more than 7,000 new cases, bringing the total to over 26,000. It's become the third most infected country after China and Italy. Iran, the worst hit in the Middle East, has reported more than 21,000 cases and over 1,600 deaths. South Korea has more than 8,800 cases, while the death toll surpasses 100. The Chinese mainland registered 1 new locally transmitted case in Guangzhou. The patient was in close contact with imported cases. China has added 47 imported cases. Hubei province reports no new case, confirmed or suspected. Nearly 90% of patients in China have now recovered. Well, let's go to Italy now, where the country's death toll soared by nearly 800 people on Saturday alone. A total of nearly 5,000 people have now died there, more than any other country in the world. Laura Silvia Battaglia is in Milan with more details.
The Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte spoke to the nation. He said this is the most difficult crisis the country is facing after the Second World War. The measures are basically tightening the previous one in a very strict way. That means that all the supplies chain, all the production will be shut down except for the health sector and the agricultural sector. And for transportation, but seems not in the north. That means that the transportation maybe will not functioning in next few or maybe more days. There are different nations that are giving a huge help. First of all, China with a lot of help in providing masks. From the next week, we will see a huge number of masks that will be given to hospitals and pharmacies. But not only from this point of view, the help of the doctors and nurses and people who are experts in different pandemics. There are also doctors from Cuba, a number of 300 in an hospital in Cremona. They're coming from Cuba, and all of them are experts in the Ebola pandemic. Plus, we can say the government issued a call for 300 volunteers, doctors, volunteers in the civil protection. The Italians that have answered to the call are 700, but of course, the help of other nations is absolutely welcome in this difficult moment for the nation.
In Spain, there are now more than 28,000 confirmed cases and fatalities, and rose today by 30%. In an effort to stop the spread of the virus, the government has announced it will extend the state of emergency until mid-April. Our correspondent Rahul Pathak is in Madrid.
That state of emergency, the new one, will kick in once the current one ends. So that means this country will be in effective lockdown till April the 13th. And that includes the entire Easter holiday period, which is a huge deal here in Spain. It's a massive festival here, very strong, very big Catholic country. It's a huge blow to the morale of the people here, and being such a huge festival, and it's a time for families to gather, a time for them to catch up with each other, a time for families to really congregate together, and of course under the current situation that cannot happen. Also, in terms of how they're dealing with the rise in new cases, field hospitals are being set up around the country. There's a massive one that's been set up near the airport here in Madrid. It's actually at the convention centre, which was hosted the recent UN climate change summit back in December. 5,500 beds are going to be housed in that particular convention centre. Retired doctors are being brought out of retirement to help with the healthcare service, as have medical students as well, such as the strain that the healthcare system is finding itself. And you've got a lot of scared people here. Some people are even too scared to go out of their homes to do the basics like food shopping, which they are allowed to do, but they're so worried about picking up an infection that they're staying at home and getting other people to do their shopping. So a really worrying picture here at the moment.
Meanwhile, here in Kenya, the government has announced a total closure of all bars and places of worship and ordered that only close family members be allowed at funerals. Weddings have also been suspended to prevent the spread of COVID-19 after 8 new cases were confirmed on Sunday. This brings the total number of coronavirus cases in Kenya to 15. According to the Health Cabinet Secretary, Kagwe Mutahi, the patients include 5 Kenyans, 2 French nationals, and a Mexican. The government has banned all international flights in a bid to curb the epidemic.
In the last 72 hours, however, we have received confirmation of an additional 8 cases who have tested positive for coronavirus. This now brings the total number of those who have tested positive to 15. Out of the latest 8 cases, 5 are Kenyans and 3 are foreign nationals. The foreign nationals are 2 French people and 1 Mexican.
Tanzanian President John Magufuli has revealed that the number of COVID-19 cases in the country has risen from 6 to 12. During an address to the nation, he said the first coronavirus patient has fully recovered, while 20 new tests done have returned negative results. He announced new measures to curb the spread of the disease, including a 2-week quarantine for all passengers arriving in the country.
Kuanzia kesho tarehe 23 Machi 2020.
As of tomorrow, the 23rd of March 2020, all passengers entering the country from nations most affected by this disease will have to self-isolate for 14 days at their own costs. These directives will include Tanzanians coming from such countries who had traveled there for various reasons. The government has from now stopped issuing travel permits to public servants going to countries affected by the coronavirus. We urge and advise citizens without any pressing reasons that would necessitate travel to those countries, as well as inside the country, to postpone their travels for now.
To Ethiopia now, where masks, test kits and protective suits donated by Chinese billionaire and co-founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, have arrived in the country's capital, Addis Ababa. The first batch of 103 tons of donations contain testing kits, masks and more, and are meant to help the African continent tackle COVID-19. They will be distributed to the whole continent in 5 days. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed will oversee the distribution of the supplies to other African countries. Jack Ma has also pledged to provide online training material for clinical treatments. U.S. President Donald Trump's labeling of the COVID-19 virus as a China virus has been strongly criticized by some African Union and Ethiopian government officials. Some of the officials CGTN spoke to, including the Africa Centers for Disease Control Director General, the Ethiopian Minister of Health, as well as ambassadors of South Africa and Djibouti to the African Union, said the comments were inappropriate. They said the comments were misleading and had shifted the world's focus from the serious task of fighting the virus. The official said China has, due to its experience, successfully tackled the coronavirus and should play a major role in the global effort in battling the pandemic.
This virus is a virus that's attacking humanity without any difference to any race or culture or color or religion. So it's a fight and a test that we are facing as a globe. So it should never be linked to any specific population or color or race. So I think we should all really join hands in terms of the fight against this outbreak. And that's when we can really control it all over the world.
I think this is clearly a global fight. It requires global solidarity and global coordination, and no stigmatization and no discrimination. In the history of infectious diseases, we know that once you start discriminating, you make the fight harder for us to win the virus. The enemy is the virus, not China, not Africa, or not Europe or America. We should stay focused on what the enemy is. The enemy we are fighting is the COVID-19 virus.
It's not China virus, and we need to follow the China's authority on this issue, because China take very strong decision and stop the virus. We need to do the same thing as African countries, because this thing is very, very, very dangerous. And as African countries, we don't have any possibility or money to fight this thing. So we need the solidarity coming first from China and other partners.
I don't think it's a fair commentary, because any virus can originate from any part of our globe. Now due to the globalization, the world is becoming a village. So any disease, not only viral infection, but any bacterial, protozoal, any epidemics can start from somewhere, but it can go into all the border of the globe. So I don't think naming a virus a Chinese virus, or tomorrow maybe a virus can originate from Ethiopia and someone is going to say Ethiopian virus, and so that's not right commentary. I think it should be corrected.
All we need to do as humanity is to work together, collaborate to deal with this pandemic. This is probably the dangerous pandemic the world has seen in the recent past. So what is required, therefore, is total commitment, working together to ensure that we all deal with this. There's no time for blame game.
This is very bad. To be honest with you, labeling is not appropriate in any part of our world today. Whether in Africa or the United States or Europe, this is a global pandemic, and no one can be labeled, and no one can be blamed for bringing or spreading this. It is a global pandemic. So we have to work together to make sure that we prevent ourselves, we prevent our population, the global humanity, and we should work together. Otherwise, if we start blaming, then we will lose focus on fighting the disease. The focus will be on blaming, and that's not, that is exactly the opposite what we are doing here. Our Prime Minister initiated it with Jack Ma, and Mr. Jack Ma was very active and initiative and working together with bringing all the institutions that I called before, and now we are delivering the goods. to make sure that the population is protected. But labeling doesn't help.
It's definitely a global fight. I think we need to pull together to address it.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Do stay with us. Nigeria has constantly stood out for its version of the famous West African cuisine, the jollof rice. The iconic mouth-watering spicy tomato-based rice dish is a staple meal. But what's more interesting about this delicacy is how much popularity it has gained globally. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam tells us more.
A traditional jollof rice kitchen in Abuja, the Nigerian capital. It's likely the most sought-after delicacy in the country. Nkiru Odunze is a caterer, and for the past 20 years, jollof rice has been a constant feature on her menu for all occasions. From restaurants to parties and even at home, this mouth-watering tomato-based rice dish is unique in many ways.
When you go to any event, without giving them that particular jollof rice, they'll be mad at you. What is the secret about this Nigerian jollof rice? I find out it's all about the burning taste. People in their home, they cook their normal rice, but that of fatty rice, which is the jollof rice, is all about the pot must get burned a bit. So the flavor of that burn attract them more.
The spicy nature and the ingredients used in preparing jollof rice is what I actually love so much.
Nigeria is a multi-ethnic nation with 250 ethnic groups, but the tomato-based cuisine is one dish that cuts across all regions. There are several ways to cook it, involving endless permutations of meat, spices, chili, onions, and vegetables. And the spicy tomato-based cuisine is loved by many here.
It's a general acceptable food we take here in Nigeria. Everybody, it doesn't select tribe. Everybody, whether you're Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, TV, whatever, tribe you are, everybody loves jollof rice.
So one of the reasons why I love jollof rice is that it's very affordable, and it's easy to prepare. When you're hungry, very fast, you just put 2 and 2 together and you're good to go. And it's also very suitable for any occasion.
Nigerian jollof rice has crossed boundaries, gaining international recognition. It's been featured on global chefs' cooking shows, and it was a delight for US artist Cardi B when she visited Nigeria. The cuisine is also considered the best version of jollof rice in West Africa, having emerged winner in the 2019 jollof rice contest held in Ghana. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Well, let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. Senegal's traditional wrestling takes a hit from coronavirus pandemic.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference. How How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Many sports and cultural activities continue to be cancelled or postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic, and traditional wrestling, a popular sport in Senegal that has not been spared. The suspension of the sport has sparked furious reactions within the wrestling community. Tulisha Balala tells us more.
The suspension of traditional wrestling in Senegal because of the COVID-19 pandemic has serious consequences for the thousands of young people who practice this sport. This West African country has recorded over 30 cases. Amateur wrestler Louis Theo Salom, for example, was expected to fight on Sunday, the 22nd of March, but his bout has been postponed indefinitely. The decision has deeply affected him, but he continues to train in the hopes of a rapid resumption.
Man proposes and God disposes. I was almost ready for the fight this Sunday, but I learned that it will not take place until further notice. This cancellation is due to the measures the authorities have taken to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. I put all my energy into preparing for this fight for months. I worked hard for it, but there's nothing we can do about it. The health of the population comes first. So I will continue my training as usual, and I'm remaining attentive to the authorities and the organizers to know the next date. I can't wait to crush my opponent.
The arrival of this disease in our country does not help us at all. The wrestling training centers are running idle, and we had several fights on the agenda this month and the next month, all of which have been postponed indefinitely. Even training is affected. Many wrestlers are not coming at the moment because of the coronavirus. The authorities have prohibited all sporting and other gatherings throughout the country. We want this disease to be eradicated so that we can relive our passion.
More than 100 wrestlers regularly come to train in Rock's Energy in Dakar. But in the last few days, the center only has about 10 athletes a day because of the new measures against coronavirus. These wrestlers want this pandemic to come and to end so they can resume their activities, as most of them have no other job.
I want you to know that the prohibition of our tournaments because of this coronavirus pandemic hurts me because I only live for this sport and the survival of my family depends on me. Traditional wrestling is my single job at the moment, and with these restrictive measures, I'm currently unemployed. We get our income from wrestling and we send our children to school with this income. The worst thing about this situation is that we do not know how long this epidemic will last and if it persists. The measures could be renewed. I am really sad that it has come to this point and we are living in constant anguish.
Wrestling was already facing its problems, and this virus is making things worse. Our athletes needed competition. More and more of them are interested in this sport, but there are not enough competitions to absorb them all and allow them to live their dream. Usually we had wrestling fights every weekend. It allows at least some of them to express themselves. But if these competitions are now suspended, we don't know how we're going to make it. It's a shocking time for us.
Traditional Senegalese wrestling is a contact sport. These competitions bring together thousands of fans, but the arenas have been empty since the announcement of the ban of gatherings of more than 50 people. This is a hard blow, not only for the wrestlers, but also for the fans of this sport that rivals football in popularity in this West African country. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Now, if it had gone according to plan, the English Premier League side Liverpool could be celebrating their first title in 30 years this weekend.